Hello everyone, I'm Landon, and I'm the DM. So I have something a little different for you today, a product highlight. I have several products by Loke Battle Mats that I want to do a review for. Take a quick look at them and give my thoughts. I have the Giant Book of Battle Mats, Giant Book of Battle Mats Volume 2, Giant Book of Sci-Fi Battle Maps, Giant Book of Cyberpunk Battle Mats, the Dungeon Books of Battle Maps, Towns and Taverns Books of Battle Mats, the Wilderness Books of Battle Mats, the Little Book of Battle Mats Dungeon Edition, the Little Book of Battle Mats Towns and Taverns Edition, the Little Book of Battle Mats Wilderness Edition, Box of Adventure Valley of Peril, Untold Encounters of the Random Kind. Now to be clear, the people at Loke Battle Mats were nice enough to send me these 3 products to review. However, that won't affect my review as I will just tell you how I feel. And honestly, I wouldn't review a product if I didn't like it for the most part. Also, I'm not being paid in any way by Loke Battle Mats. I will have links in the description if you want to check these out to get them for yourselves. Some of those links will be affiliate links to Amazon, so if you do purchase them, that does mean there is a small monetary benefit for me. I will also try to have some links to Game Nerds as well as Miniature Market, so you can try and find the best deal. Or you can check them out at your local game store if they happen to have them. But before we get into the review, I just wanted to say that I know I kind of disappeared for a little bit there. Had a lot going on with Christmas coming up as well as a home project that I had been working on. We were putting up drywall in our laundry room, and I had a friend who was helping me who knew a lot about that stuff, but it just turned out to be very complicated. Old houses are like that. So, with that out of the way, let's get into it. Thanks for joining me at my table. Each Battle Mat book is spiral bound, so every single page or 2-page spread can be made to lay flat by just moving some of the pages underneath. The Giant Book of Battle Mats, Volume 1, 2, Sci-Fi, and Cyberpunk each have 62 16 by 12 inch dry erase map pages. That is 31 2-page spreads each. Note that in the Giant Battle Mat books, it looks like the outside square of the 2-page spread has been cut off a little bit. It isn't that much, but it is something to be aware of that doesn't exist in the other styles of books that I have. The 3 theme book sets, the Dungeon, Towns and Taverns, the Wilderness, each come with 2 books, each with 40 12 by 12 inch pages. That's 80 to a set, or 22-page spreads, 40 to a set. These are specifically designed to line up against the other book in the set. That creates a 24 by 24 inch map that can be mixed how you like. I feel like across the themes you can find good matches to create all sorts of unique combinations. To accompany the theme book sets from the Loke Battle Mat Kickstarters, we have the Little Books, the Dungeon Edition, Towns and Taverns Edition, and the Wilderness Edition, each with 20 6x6 inch pages. That's 10 2-page spreads. These can be used in conjunction with the other themed books, either as an addition or as an extension or connection. I've also used them on their own for a small location. It is also worth knowing that each book comes with a visual map index on the back of the book to speed up finding the maps that you want. I believe that this is the first book that was made from Loke Battle Mats, and to me at least, it does show its age. The pages aren't numbered. Also, to me, the art isn't quite as good as in later releases. Something about it just feels slightly off or lower quality. Now, it's still not bad, and I have used this book in my own games. It just shows the improvements that have been made as things have moved on. My 2 favorite maps are the Floor Runes and the Throne Room. We can see the improvements in the art as well as the overall composition of the maps. The maps are a lot clearer and the colors don't seem to blend in the details. This one has a large variety of maps that definitely inspire me for possible encounters. For this book, my favorite maps are the Fire Pedestal and the Half Cave, Half Building. Now, I don't often get to play sci-fi games at my table, but I sometimes like to sprinkle in sci-fi elements into my fantasy games because I think that's fun. Now, a lot of these maps are actually perfectly serviceable without needing to do any kind of plot maneuvering. Some of them might be a little harder to explain, but you could do it. All that said, I really do like these maps. My picks from this book would be the Desert and the Blue Starscape. I don't think I played in many games where I could have used a lot of maps from this book, other than 1 or 2 games of Vampire the Masquerade, but there are some great maps. Now there's definitely some in here that I think that you could use in a fantasy game. There's even a few that could be explained away as arcane in nature. My favorites from this would be the Ruined Building and the Library. I really like the dungeon set. I found myself using them a lot. These are actually one of the first sets that I got. I always look through them when I need some maps. They're not only great for dungeons, but other buildings and ruins, and I've even used them for regular castles, just kind of whatever I needed them to be. The maps and the art are all very high quality. My favorite maps from this is the Scald Forge and the Sunburst Library. This is another excellent addition. So many adventures and encounters take place in cities or towns, or villages, whether on the street, in a cemetery, in a castle, at the tavern or an inn, or even an abandoned warehouse or two. The only thing that I can say with this particular set is that I really wish there were more maps. My favorite maps from this set, the Crypt's entrance and the docks. This is the new set from Loke Battle Mats. This was actually my first chance to open it up and take a look. Loke has consistently been upping the quality of their products. I really love these maps. Most of my random encounters occur out in the wild. It will be so easy to use to just find the environment that I need and just put something down on the table. I know that these maps will become a staple at my table. Two favorite maps are the Ice Shore and the Lava Cracks. These little books are great and so cute and small for if you need just a small transition map or if the encounter is in a tighter space. I've also used these as expansions to a map if the party happens to discover a secret area or a secret door. Being able to bring in the small map to reveal the location of a quest item when the party is successful is a fun little trick. I've also used these where I've sat them on bigger maps to change a feature. My favorite maps for these little books from the Dungeon Edition is the Jail Cells and the Glowing Green Mushroom Cave. Towns and Taverns Edition, the Bridge Over Water, and the Tomb with the Lone Sarcophagus. For the Wilderness Edition, I like the River Crossing and the Stone Overhang with the Sacrificial Altar. I actually really like the box. It's got nice art. It's also styled like a book. It has a magnetic flap. The magnet seems strong enough to hold it closed. The outside board seems pretty solid. I like the nice clear map index on the side there. The ribbon is a nice touch and also really handy for getting the maps out of there. Also, another fun feature is that the box, without any maps in it, is actually its own map with some half-height walls. Now, the walls are definitely thinner, but they are surrounded by that thicker outside cover. So let's talk about what's inside. First, the maps. There are 24 different maps across these double-sided sheets. There are 4 maps for each theme that can be put together in order to expand into a larger map. We have the Forest Road, we have the Dungeon Halls, we have the Lost Caves, the Forest Ruin, the Old Homestead, and the Barren Hills. That also gives us the Tavern with the view of the outside in the first 2 levels. And then we also have a cave. We have these 3 pages of terrain building pieces. These actually remind me a lot of the terrain from 1985 games, so I think those would actually play pretty well together. Cut these out and then you use them to augment the other maps. There is a decent variety. There should be enough to build some fun encounters. Lastly, there are 3 pages of tokens. These aren't flimsy, but I wouldn't try bending them in half. Also, they are double-sided, but they have different art on each side, so you have different tokens. They range from medium to huge size. Also, these are not punch-out tokens, so you will have to cut them with a pair of scissors or something. The art for these tokens is okay. Not all of them are really my art style, but that's okay. I don't dislike them. Overall, I really like this box of adventure. I would definitely make use of pretty much everything here. I actually hadn't heard of this one until Loke Battle Mats had sent it to me for review. Also, it's worth noting that if you are a mainly online DM, that the digital version does come with the physical one. The digital version is available for purchase through DriveThruRPG. A link will be in the description. Now, I'm really excited about this last item. This was part of the Wilderness Kickstarter. We have Untold Encounters of the Random Kind, a hardcover book of 1,000 plus random encounters for any tabletop RPG, and it's 5e compatible. It's also worth noting that this physical book does come with a digital copy. I'll use that to show you the content of this book a little easier. Also, I'm going to highlight a couple of important things, and then we're going to basically walk through the book and roll up a couple things on their random tables. So here at the table of contents, we see that they have town, wilderness, and dungeon encounters. Hey, I think they also have some map books in those very same themes, which are broken down into various districts, regions, and encounter types. Spread throughout, there are also these 6 example 5e adventures, and there are plenty of random tables. So this is built to be system agnostic, but also it does have some guidance for running it in 5e. Let's go over those system agnostic mechanics very briefly. Overall, they separate things into broad strokes. For damage, we have minor, light, major, and lethal. Difficulty is broken down into simple, routine, difficult, very difficult, and near impossible. The challenge of enemies or NPCs is broken down into easy, standard, elite, boss, and overwhelming. Enemy types are classified as beast, antagonists, denizens, and monsters. Group sizes. We have lone, pair, small, equal, large, very large, and horde, and beyond count. For NPC types, they give us the cleric, the commoner, performer, ranger, rogue, the scholar, warrior, and wizard. And here's the guidance for taking these random encounters into 5e. I'm not going to go over all of this across these 2 pages, but if you want to pause, you can go ahead and take a look at it. But it does seem good after going over it, even with 1 or 2 small typos that must have slipped past editing. Any town is a hub of activity, from legitimate trade through to shady dealings, and from the lowliest slum to the highest palace tower. There are stories to be told. Town encounters. First, it is important to note that there are a lot of random tables in this book, but the best way to use a random table is for inspiration. You are not a slave to the result. If you don't like the result, don't use it. Pick something else. Find one that fits perfectly in this situation, or one that inspires you, or the one you think is funny. The town encounters are broken down into different districts, which can be useful for getting the kind of flavor for the encounter that you want. Those districts are the Castle Ward, Cemetery, Docks, Guild Quarter, High Street, Lanes, Noble Quarter, Rural, Slums, and Undercity. Now each of these districts has a detailed breakdown and encounter table, but for the sake of the length of this video, we'll do a single roll on the encounter, and then we'll also try their adventure. Let's roll a town encounter. Rolling a d20 for the town district. A 13. That puts our town encounter in the Noble Quarter. Rolling a d100 for the Noble Quarter encounter. That's 27. That gives us the encounter called Gathering Supplies. This figure, standard wizard NPC, is looking for some very particular ingredients and is not keen on being noticed. He has coin for the right items, which are not easy to come by. Many are not available from the shops, or strictly speaking, entirely legal. Let's roll a town adventure. Rolling for the adventure theme. That's a 19. That puts us with rivalry. The characters are invited to join a side in a bit of rivalry. Let's see who our adventure instigator is. That's a 12. That gives us nobility. Ooh, that fits with our noble quarter. Let's see about antagonists. That's a 15. Mercenaries. Not just hired muscle, but also hired magic, stealth, etc. that either have a paymaster or a reason to oppose the characters themselves. What complications do our characters run into? That's an 8. That means it's festival time. The town is in the middle of a great festival, and the streets are packed with revelers. So a rivalry in the middle of a festival with some mercenaries instigated by nobles. Let's roll for our adventure stages. Ooh, that's a 1. That means that there is one stage, the end. Epic adventures often require equally epic journeys. Wilderness encounters. They are broken down into the following regions: Arctic, desert, forest, mountains, plains, sea and shore, swamp and jungle, and wilderness boon, or items to be found. Let's roll a wilderness encounter. Rolling a d8 for our wilderness region. Number 4, so that puts us in the mountains, high and cold. Let's roll a d100 to see what encounter we get. In the mountains, that's a 40. Hermit Seer, alone and armed. Ooh. Densely packed small stones piled high surround this little hovel, making it hard to see. As characters approach, the Seer of Endings, standard wizard NPC, emerges. Having foreseen this encounter and the character's destiny in quite some detail, they single out one character and advise the rest that they must stop them before they bring about the end times. If they cannot persuade the characters to deal with one of their own, then the Seer will use their own destructive magic to see to it themselves. Let's roll a wilderness adventure. Let's roll a d12 to determine our wilderness adventure theme. 4. That means that we have escort duty. An important dignitary, or possibly a dangerous criminal, needs to be taken to an isolated location, but must be kept away from the roads and well-used paths. Let's roll a d20 for complications. That's an 18. That means supply issues, poor planning, bad luck, or sabotage means that a few days out from civilization, the characters' supplies run out with food spoiled, water leaked, and hunting gear broken. Let's roll to see how many adventure stages we have. 16. That puts us at 8 stages, 7 days of travels, and then the destination. A dungeon can be many things to many people. One denizen's home is a dungeoneer's adventure, after all. Dungeon encounters. They have the following dungeon encounter types. We have dungeon boons, dungeon doors, enemies, environmental, interaction, intrigue, traps. Let's roll to build a dungeon. Let's roll a d20 to determine the dungeon location. 7 gives us close to town. The dungeon is a short travel distance from the settled community. Let's see what the backstory of our dungeon is.
as 12 gives us Gateway. The dungeon is a known place of magical power to beyond, rumored to be at its heart. Let's roll another d20 and see what kind of variation our dungeon is. A 9 gives us a lair. The dungeon is home to a terrifying monster. The boss for this dungeon is an overwhelming monster. How big is our dungeon? 18 gives us 8 areas.
Let's roll a dungeon encounter.
17 gives us interaction. First, let's roll a d20 to determine the NPC motivation and personality. An 11. Motivation, idealist, and personality is fair. Rolling a d100, 29. Engineers. An equal-sized group of dungeon contractors, standard commoner NPCs, are busy repairing the dungeon infrastructure in this rather rundown and ramshackle encounter zone. They'll either have been forced to work, 60%, or paid to be down here, 40%.
There are quite a few random tables in the back to help determine or provide inspiration for quite a few things. And that has been my review of a sizable amount of Loke Battle Mat products. They really do make some awesome stuff, and I want to thank them again for sending me a few items for review. Please check out the links in the description for the different things that I showed off in this video. Show Loke Battle Mat some love and support. If you do end up buying something from them, why not let them know that you saw my video? If you liked this video or learned anything new, please consider giving it a like and commenting. Subscribe and turn on notifications to find out about my videos as soon as I upload them. If you would like to support me even more, you can find a link to my Patreon in the description. Now don't worry, I will be returning to Kickstarter reviews, but this was just a fun thing that I got to do. Don't worry, I still have more Kickstarter highlights in me. I'm Landon, and I'm the DM, and Merry Christmas!